It's very nice to be back in Berekley. I live in Ryan Place, very nearby, and I come through this neighborhood quite a bit. I want to set the groundwork for what I want to go over tonight and kind of lay it out. I think we have a long conversation ahead of us because there's a lot going on in the city of Fort Worth. There's a lot going on in District 9, and there's actually quite a bit going on here in Berekley that I have emailed with a number of you about. I've had a few phone conversations with some of you, Randy, just last week. I think it warrants not only me conveying some information that I believe is important for the neighborhood to hear and to understand, but I also want the opportunity to get your responses. And so I'm a big believer in all good meetings last an hour. I hear that you've got some business to do afterwards. We may go over that a little bit if you don't mind, but I think it's some of the issues that we have to cover tonight warrant that extra attention. I so need to stop doing handwritten notes now that I'm 41 and can't read this. As we go along through this conversation, I want to underscore that there's going to be a number of tough decisions related to budget, related to a number of things in the coming year, and I want to make sure that you know that my goal is to represent what my neighborhoods desire, and that our voice and our priorities are represented during the course of those conversations. And the very last thing that I want to talk about is actually something that I have we go through life and we have these kind of pivotal moments and you realize, you know, something has changed. This has been a point at which my outlook has changed. And I will tell you, a few Thursdays ago, we got our council packet and I learned that the zoo contract was going to be voted on the following Tuesday, and I learned that literally on the night I got my packet with the agenda. And that was a complete game changer in terms of how I look at my council service. I have, in the couple of weeks since then, really done a kind of strong reevaluation on what I want to get out of my service, the time that I invest in doing this. And I will tell you that for the course of the next year, I'm going to use every venue like this that I have to talk about the fact that the public process, that public involvement in a public discourse, I believe in Fort Worth is broken right now. And that may not be something that's well received by people who work at City Hall. It may not be well received by some of the people I serve on City Council with, but it's something that I'm going to talk about at every opportunity I'm given, because I truly believe this was kind of the last straw for me, that we have a great opportunity with lots of folks. Berekley's a very neighborhoody neighborhood. You guys have a lot to offer. You have a full room at a neighborhood meeting. Do you know how many neighborhoods have 3 people show up to their neighborhood meetings? There are a lot of you who are very active, and I was reminded during the course of my conversations about the zoo contract with Herb and Christian Ellis and with others from your neighborhood, with surrounding neighborhoods, that public process makes everything better. And the fact that we are taking away that opportunity, I think in a lot of instances, or that we are not making a conscious effort to make sure that we have a better public process in many of the decisions that we make. I was talking with someone a few minutes ago. We have our renewal contract coming up for waste management in the course of the next year. We have other things coming up. And having a public input on how we can better what we do as a city, whether it's the tough budget choices we have, new contracts that we have, that is intrinsically vital to what we do as a city. And it's one of the things, like I said, that I plan on talking quite a bit about in the course of the next year, because I think that we need to write the course on that. I'm going to start out with the budget. Last year, and I'm going to do the hard stuff first, I guess. Last year we had a $61 million budget shortfall. When all was said and done, it ended up being $59.5 million, but we started out thinking it was a $61 million budget shortfall. We have started the budget process a lot earlier this year in order to get ahead of some of those conversations like I talked about, like, you know, what are our choices? Do we close pools? Do we close libraries? Do we close community centers? Do we increase taxes? Do we increase fees? These are all part of an equation that we have in terms of what are our choices ahead of us as a city. We're looking at right now, they're saying $41 million, but I've heard that because of some of the actuarial estimates for our pension, that it may be as much as 50 to 55 million. I will tell you, on the heels of cutting nearly $20 million 2 years ago out of our budget, cutting $60 million out of our budget this last year, we've cut most of the fat. we're going to really start getting into services. Already, I heard our code enforcement officers say something that I think is largely inexcusable. They said to someone who had called in about a complaint about high grass, well, we're just understaffed right now and we're just not going to have time to get to it. That actually is going to start happening more and more, and that's something that I don't want to hear any of our city employees say to homeowners or to residents when they call in, I'm sorry, we're short-staffed, I'm just not going to get to it. That's inexcusable. But it is a challenge that we're going to face in the course of this budget conversation. Like I said, we are starting earlier. There are a variety of ways that we're looking at dealing with this. The biggest one is if there is any more fat to cut, continue to do that. Each of the departments have been asked to submit a 10% reduction in their overall budgets. Police and fire have been asked for a 5% reduction in their budget. I know that the police chief has delivered that last week. Most of the department heads are delivering their budget reductions. There will continue to be a number of City Hall employees who will be let go during the course of this budget deliberation. I don't know that we're going to be able to get rid of the furlough days. Reed is one of our city employees who's sitting right here. And how many days a year? 8 days a year? 8 days a year. He is required to sit at home. He cannot turn on his computer, and he doesn't get paid for that day because that's how we determined that we needed to reduce our budget last year. Without additional revenues coming in, he's not coming back in those 8 days, and our goal is to not have those 8 days increased to anything beyond 8 days. So that conversation is happening now. We've done some things in the course of the last year to put us in a better position for this budget. I think some of you know that for many years, long before I actually got on the City Council, we were very delinquent in having our consolidated annual financial report, our CAFR audits done. We are now up to date on our audits. We were as much as a year to 2 years behind on those for a process of something like 6 or 7 years actually. We are now fully caught up. We made an additional investment in staff to get that done, and in the course of that, all of our bond ratings have been elevated in the course of the last year because of us now being up to date, which over the long term is a big deal for us. It saves literally hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in interest for the bond packages that you guys voted on in 2004 and 2008 for street and roadway improvements and other bond issues. So that's a big savings to us as a city. It was well worth the investment. That's a great example of investing some additional money, additional staffing to do a really finite task and reaping the benefits long-term from doing that. And that's one of the things that we will be looking to do during the course of this budget conversation.